more on that potential, what is being called an imminent strike from Iran. We'll bring in Amir Fakhravar, Senate Chairman for the National Iranian Congress, author of Comrade Ayatollah. Colonel Tony Shaffer is joining us, retired from the U.S. Army and the president of the London Center for Policy Research. Colonel, thanks for coming back on. Amir, thank you. Colonel, I'll start with you. If you could talk to us about this, Iran rejecting a call for restraint, even though this letter was sent out by European leaders, by allies. Right now, we know that Hamas itself seemingly not wanting to come to the negotiations, though perhaps an agreement could be brought to them, and then Iran would not act. Do you see any truth to that?
I see that the situation is chaotic because there's no one really leading the effort, Sean. That's part of the issue. The Biden administration is talking a good game through third parties. Well, you and I both know when you talk through third parties, things get lost in translation. So I think you're seeing that effect. Secondly, the Iranians, I think, are going to retaliate. I think they're measuring the effects of that retaliation. The Russians have been providing them new weapon systems. The Russians are providing them the S-400 air defense system, as well as new hypersonic missiles, the Iskander, something not introduced to the Middle East, an offensive weapon that the Iranians could potentially use to defeat the Iron Dome. So, Sean, before they do something, I think the Iranians are looking at all the options. And one last thing I'll say. Notably, the Biden administration has predicted 3 times now that the attack from Iran is imminent. Well, we have the most sophisticated intelligence system in the world, and we're guessing. Something is really wrong with the situation, and it's something that the Israelis need to be concerned about. We've deployed the biggest muscle movement of military activity since the beginning of this administration, and I think the Biden administration is hoping that the Iranians don't do anything, but hope is not a strategy.
Indeed. The Pentagon's press secretary answering some questions yesterday on the United States' stance and how the country's dealing with these threats coming from Iran. Here's those remarks.
We have put these additional capabilities into the region to enable us, as I highlighted, to protect our forces, but also to support the defense of Israel should it be attacked. I'm not going to speculate or get into hypotheticals on when and if Iran launches an attack or one of their proxies launches an attack. Their public comments have been very clear, so we need to take those seriously. But our focus is on de-escalating tensions, working on enabling that ceasefire and getting these hostages returned home.
Which really goes to the Colonel's point. And so, Amir, I'm wondering, when you've got U.S. Ships in the region, when you've got a submarine that's being deployed, how is Iran viewing the United States?
Thank you for having me. The problem is United States doesn't have any policy toward Iran. That's the reality. It didn't have it since 1979, when the Mullahs rose to power via a Russian-backed coup, and everybody mistakenly they called it Islamic Revolution. It was not a revolution. And all the presidents, the Republicans and the Democrats, since then didn't have any policy toward Iran. Just the group of fanatic mullahs, the terrorists, were in power. $100 billion every year, petrodollar, was in their hand to just grow their terror network in Middle East and in the world, and nobody wanted to do anything with them. And you know what the saddest part is? We have 100 million Iranian people inside and outside of the country. They are ready to get rid of this regime. And just one president did something strong. It was President Trump. When he called the bluff of IRGC and Iranian mullahs and killed Qasem Soleimani, everybody have been afraid, if we kill Qasem Soleimani, what will happen? But he killed it and said, okay, now what? And regime was crushed with that maximum pressure campaign by President Trump. And then Biden destroyed that campaign. You know what? It should, let's hope President Trump will be back at the White House with the policy.
Yeah, 83 days for that, Amir. I got to jump in because I want to make sure we get Colonel Shaffer back in this conversation, limited on time, of course, with television here. Colonel, your thoughts on looking at not necessarily will Iran attack, will it not? That's something that really ad nauseum we've been discussing. But the ceasefire talks tomorrow, how crucial are those?
They're not crucial, Sean. I hate to say this. I'm going to be blunt. Right now, it's all about a delay game by this administration. All they're trying to do is make sure that nothing super bad happens to interfere with the Democrats' three-state solutions. My friend Blaine Holt, go credit to Blaine. The three-state solution is Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. This is all about politics for this U.S. And as Amir said, there's no policy. This is all about domestic politics at this point. And I think at this point, the one thing that's holding everybody back, to include even keeping anybody in negotiations, is the Israelis. The Israelis, by making it personal, they've taken out senior leaders in both Hamas and Hezbollah. That set off and put people back. But at this point, there's really not much hope that a negotiated settlement is going to happen, since the military commander of Hamas became the guy in charge of the overall organization. So I'm not hopeful that we're going to see any progress.
Yeah, by the way, that three-state solution, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, I believe you said, I actually wrote that down. I thought that's an interesting point.
Oh, credit to Blaine.
I did. I put that down. Amir Fakhravar, Colonel Tony Schaefer, thank you both. We'll be watching again to those ceasefire talks. If anything comes from that, we'll be reporting on that. Vice President Harris